market a drug in India, you should get a permission from DCJ. In the same way, if you want to market ever drug, okay, if you want to market ever drug in PSA, you should get the permission, you should get the permission from PSA. Understand this one? You should get from FDA. In the same way, if you want to market ever drug in Japan, you should get a permission from PMDA. So each and every country is going to have a regulatory body. If you want to market a product in that country, you should get a permission from the regulatory body. Then only you can market the drug in that particular country. Now, my question is, now recently you manufactured a new drug called XYZ. You're a pharma company, a big pharma company in India, and you manufactured a drug called XYZ. Okay? Now you want to market this XYZ drug in India. So from where you need to get the permission, by the way? You need to get the permission from DCGI. How the DCGI is going to give the permission? Based on what basis they will give the permission? Whenever you want to market any drug, in any country, whatever the drug that you want to market, first we are going to test this drug on certain amount of people. Particularly, we are going to test this drug on patients. Once you have tested this drug on the patient, we are going to collect the information from the patients before the drug, what was the condition, and after the drug, what is the situation. We are going to, collect all that information. Now, once you collected that information, now we are going to put it together, and I'm going to submit this information to DCGA. Everybody? Now, the DCGA is going to look into that information. If they strongly believe that yes, your drug really worked well in these patients, then what they will do, they are going to give the permission. Be able to follow everybody? Now, yes. What information that you are going to collect? Now, testing your drug on certain amount of patients, collecting the data and submitting this data to the regulatory body, the whole process is called as we call it as clinical trial. So, we are going to conduct the clinical trials. In the clinical trial, we are going to get the data, information, and we submit that information to DCGA. Now, the DCGA is going to look into that information. If they believe that by seeing that information, by reviewing the data, that information, if they strongly believe that yes, your drug really worked well, then what they will do, they will give the permission to manufacture, to market the drug in the country. So that means, whenever we want to get a permission from any regulatory body, what ultimately we should do, we have to conduct the clinical trial on the drug. So we are going to conduct the clinical trial. Now, since we are in the project side, I'm going to give a little bit in-depth knowledge into the clinical trial. So, before conducting the clinical trial, I'm going to discuss a little bit of introduction on a clinical trial. Say for example, you are working as a research scientist in one of the leading MNC pharma company. Say for example, you are working as a scientist in Dr. Reddy's. As a scientist, what is our work? 365 days, 24/7, we are going to do the research, try to find new molecules which has got therapeutic applications, therapeutic activities. So you are doing so much of research. One fine day, you are able to isolate a molecule. Say for example, it is an XYZ molecule. It is a drug molecule, and you are strongly believing that this molecule is going to reduce diabetes very effectively in diabetic patients. And you are strongly believing that. Okay? And you are strongly believing that yes, this drug is going to create wonders in the diabetic patients. If this drug comes into the market, your company is going to be in so much of profit. All the diabetic patients are going to be free from the diabetes. Now they can have the free life and life. So whenever you identify a molecule like this one, whenever you discover a molecule, and by the way, when you discover this molecule at the starting, this XYZ molecule is very crude, inactive, very precursor molecule, and this molecule has got only 30% activity. Very crude and very wild, very inactive molecule. But whenever you discover a molecule like this one, what we are going to do, the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to launch intellectual property right. We are going to launch intellectual property right, and we simply call it as an IP right or patent. Now we are going to get 20 years as our patent right. So that means the next 20 years, you are the sole proprietor of this molecule. You only can manufacture this drug, and you only can market this drug. Nobody else can do manufacturing and marketing. If somebody wants to do manufacturing this drug and they want to market it, they have to pay royalty for you. Understand this one, everybody? In worldwide or India only, sir? Anywhere. Now, the next one is, in the real time, the success of the scientist, the success of the pharma company, we are going to measure them by how many patents they have. As a scientist, we have more and more patents, that means we have more and more successful scientists. As a pharma company, I'm going to look into how many patents that you have. If you have more and more patents, that means you are a very successful pharma company. That's how we measure the success of any person, any organization when it comes to the pharma world. So, whenever they discover a new drug like this one, and this step we call it as a drug discovery, that means you have discovered a new drug. Okay? Now once you're done with the discovery, I told you, whenever, I told you in the starting it has got only 30% activity. Now what we do, we have to increase that activity from, say for example, 30% to maybe 95% or 98 or 99%. We have to purify it, we have to isolate it, and if we are able to enhance that activity, and the whole process we call it as a drug development. So we have developed this drug further. We are going to remove unnecessary functional groups. We are going to add new functional groups to make it more active. We are going to purify it, we are going to isolate it, we are going to develop it, we are going to do so many things. By doing all those things, we increase the activity from 30% to 98%, and this process is called as a drug development. Generally, in the real time, where we do this discovery and development, most of the pharma companies are going to have R&Ds. In those R&Ds, we are going to do a lot of clinical research. We try to discover the new molecules, develop them, isolate them, purify them, enhance them, try to find out the target, the mode of action, the rationale of the drug. We are going to do all those things. Most of the pharma companies are going to have R&Ds, and we do a lot of research R&Ds. As a government rule, 30% of the profit you have to spend on R&D. Apart from that, as a pharma company, if you are not spending money on R&D, if you are not discovering new molecules, if you are not developing your existing molecules, you are out of the competition from other like pharma companies. If you want to be in the field, if you want to be in the competition, continuously you need to try to find out the new molecules, you have to develop the existing molecules, and that's how we are going to be in the competition of the pharma field. And not only that, R&D, we have these government research organizations. These government research organizations is going to do a lot of research like CCMB, CDMD, there are going to be a lot of NIMs, so along with the universities also conduct a lot of research, and along with that, there are going to be a lot of private research organizations, so those research organizations also do a lot of research. So So say for example, you're a research scientist, you did a lot of research, and suddenly one day, either said you find this XYZ molecule, and you isolated it, you look at it. Now you're strongly believing that this XYZ is going to create wonders in type 2 diabetic patients. Once you discover, once you develop it, this is not enough. You have to prove that this molecule is really going to work in diabetic patients. Then how we can prove that one? To prove that this drug is really working, you know what I'm going to do? First of all, we are going to do in vitro studies. You know what is in vitro study? In the laboratory conditions or in petrificates or in test tubes. In laboratory conditions or in artificial conditions. We have to prove that how our drug is working in vitro conditions. Now, during the in vitro study, you know what we are going to do? We are going to prove that our drug is not a toxic molecule. It is not a carcinogenic molecule. It should not be a carcinogenic molecule, and it should not be a mutagenic molecule. You know what is the toxic? Toxicity causing ability. It should not have a toxicity causing ability. You know what is the carcinogenic? Cancer. Cancer causing, it should not cause any cancer, and it should not be a mutagenic. It should not be any mutation. Sometimes the mutations may lead to the cancer. You have to prove that your drug is not a toxic, not a carcinogenic, not a mutagenic. And if you are able to prove your drug is 100% safe, now what we are going to do? We are going to put the next step, and we are going to do in vivo studies. You know what is in vivo? What is in vivo? In natural conditions. What is natural condition for a drug? The natural condition nothing but inside the body. Inside the body. Okay. So in natural conditions, inside the body, you know what we are going to do? We are going to test our drug. So what is that inside body? During the in vivo study, we are going to test our drug in any one animal body. So there are different types of lab animals are available. We are going to select any one animal which is suitable for a drug given disease, given study disease. As an animal model, we have a mice, we have, for example, guinea pig, and we have, for example, rabbit, we have, for example, monkeys, we have a monkey, we have a chimpanzee. Okay, there are different types of lab animal model. You can choose any one animal model. You know, when the Biontech are working on Covaxin, they work on monkeys, and Covishield, AstraZeneca, they work on chimpanzees. So during the in vivo study, we are going to select any one animal model. In that animal model, what I'm going to do, I'm going to test my drug. So that's why these in vivo studies also called as animal studies. Okay. And in future, the next step I'm going to do human studies. That's why in the next step, since I'm going to the human studies, so these are also called as preclinical studies. These are also called as preclinical studies. So animal studies and preclinical studies are both the same. So we are going to test our drug in animal. But today's class, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take rat as my animal model. I told you it depends on the drug, the mode of action, it also depends on the disease, study disease. Based on all these, we are going to select any one animal model. For our today's class, for my drug, I have taken rat as my animal model. In this rat, I'm going to prove that yes, my drug is working well, my drug is going to reduce the diabetes. Now what we are going to do? I'm going to take one rat animal. In the starting, do you remember that I told you my drug is going to work on which disease? Diabetes. You said I told you diabetes, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a rat animal, I'm going to remove pancreas from this animal. Now you know what is going to happen if I remove the pancreas? There will be no insulin secretion. If there is no insulin secretion, this animal is going to become diabetic. It is going to become diabetic. It is going to become diabetic. So I'm going to make this animal diabetic. Once it has become a diabetic, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to collect the blood, different types of samples from this animal. I'm going to collect the blood, the plasma, serum, sputum, urine, biopsies. I'll collect different types of samples. Once I collected the samples from this animal, what I'm going to do? I am going to run different types of diagnostic tests. What I'm going to do? I'm going to run different types of diagnostic tests. What type of test I'm going to do? I'm going to do what is the blood glucose level, urine glucose, and the serum creatinine, urea, blood urea, cholesterol, hemoglobins, RBC, WC, sodium, potassium. I'm going to do all the different types of tests. When you perform different types of diagnostic tests, what activity will happen now? We are going to get the test results and simply record the reports. Once I collected all this, once I got all the reports, what I'm going to do? I'm going to put all these reports, I'm going to collect all these reports in a form of a table. Now, if you collect information in a form of a table, you know what we call it as a? We call it as a data. What is data? Data is nothing but a collection of information. Now, how are we going to collect them? Say, for example, what is the animal number? Say, for example, first I'm going to take the animal number as one column. Then I'm going to do what test that I conducted, and what is the result I have got, and what is the indication of the result, and what did I conducted this test. Just imagine I'm collecting this information in a table of format. Animal number, say, for example, 001, and I conducted the test of blood glucose, conducting glucose, and I got the result of 450 UC per ml, and the indication is very high, and rating high, and I conducted this test on 5th of June 2023. In the same way, in the same animal, this time I conducted the serum creatinine, and I got the value, say, for example, 82 or something, and it is very high, I'm rating that high. And I conducted this test again on 5th June 2023. 003, sorry, on the same animal again 001, and again on the same animal, this time I conducted the urea, now the urea, and I got the value 53, and it is very high, I'm rating that high, and again I did this on 5th June 2023. This way, in this animal, I conducted, for example, that, cholesterol on the same animal, so this time I did, for example, RBC, then I did the WBC, then I did the hemoglobin, and then I did, for example, sodium, and then I did the potassium, I did n number of tests, so, for example, I did 200 tests, I collected all the 200 test reports, I did, so, for example, albumin, phosphatase, thyroid, I did all the tests. I collected all the data in this tabular format. And now, if you collect the data in a tabular format like this one, and this is called data. Clear, everybody? Now, once I collected the data, then what I'm going to do, after some time, I'm going to give to the same rat animal. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to inject my XYZ drug. Remember, I discovered XYZ drug, I'm testing my XYZ drug, I'm going to inject my XYZ drug. After injecting the drug, maybe after 2 hours or 3 hours, again what I'm going to do, I'm going to collect the samples from the same animal. And again, I'm going to run the same diagnostic test what I performed previously. And once you perform the test, what you're going to get now, we are going to get the test reports, and I'm going to collect all the test reports again in a form of a table. As I said, if you collect information in the form of a table, this is also data, and now this is also data. But do you know what the difference between this data and this data? What is the difference between these two data?
Before it is slow. Now it is slow. After injecting XY, now it happened.
This is the two different data. This is before injecting the drug, and this is after injecting the drug. Now, if you want to prove that if a drug is working in this animal, how we can prove that?
Compare the first data.
Compare the studies. Very good. We have to compare this data with this data. Before, this is the before giving the drug blood report. This is after giving the drug blood report. By comparing both the reports, we can come to a conclusion whether a drug is working in this animal or not. Now, I want to make it very simple. I'm going to take a simple example. Now, I'm very sure. Just imagine, before the drug, before injecting the drug, I collected the blood sample. On the blood sample, I collected separate sample blood glucose test before giving the drug. In the animal data, before the drug, I did the blood glucose test. I got the value 450 mu C per ml. This is what I wanted. Okay, so the same animal, now I injected my XYZ drug. After injecting XYZ drug, again I did the same blood glucose test. Okay, at this time I got the value, say for example 200 mu C per ml. Now what is our comment on this? Anyway, what is our comment on this?
The drug works.
Okay, the blood glucose level. So you can say the blood glucose level has been reduced from 450 to 200. So what is our comment on this? Is it our drug is working or not? We can come to a conclusion. Since after the drug is says, since the glucose level is coming down to 200, you can say yes, my drug reduced the glucose level from 450 to 200. We can come to a conclusion saying that yes, my drug is working. Isn't it? But in the real time, we cannot come to conclusion that much easily. Because do you think the blood glucose level of any person only depends on the drug what he has taken? No, sir. The blood glucose level of any person may depend on so many other factors. If you want to come to a conclusion, you do not take only this report to do, so you cannot come to a conclusion by saying only this report. You have to consider so many factors. Do you know what are the factors that influence the blood glucose level of any person? So diet, energy of any person. It may depend upon the gender of the person. It may depend on the age of the person. It may depend upon the weight of the person. It also depends on the body mass index of the person. And it also depends on the food it has taken, both quality wise and quantity wise, how much quantity it has taken, what kind of food, is it carbohydrates, fats, or proteins. And it also depends on the exercise it has done. It also depends on the rest it has taken. And the exercise, what kind of exercise it has done, just walking, brisk walking, running, and any ways. And it also depends on the thyroid problem. It also depends on the cholesterol problem. It also depends on the stress. So many other factors will influence the blood glucose level of any person. So, if you want to come to a conclusion, simply by saying this only blood glucose test, we cannot come to a conclusion. Since so many other factors getting involved, we call it a factor is a variable. So many other factors are getting involved, then what will you do? We have to consider all these factors. Now, if you started considering all these factors, now what will you do? You cannot take simply one animal and you cannot come to a conclusion. What will you do? At least you should take maybe say for example 1,000 animals. So, nullify the gender factor, what will I do? I should take 500 males and I should take 500 females. So, to nullify the gender factor. So, it is only 500 males and this is only 500 females. Now, again, within the 500 males, what will I do? I should take different types of age groups. Again, with the females also, I should take different types of age. Now, within the different types of age, I should take different types of weight, and I should take different types of body mass index. I should give different types of food and diet, and I should give the different types of exercise, and I should give different types of resting intervals. While doing all this, what I should do? I should collect all this information. If I started collecting all this information, now we are going to have millions of layers of lines of data. You know that a line is called as a record. A record is called as an observation. And we are going to have millions of observations or millions of lines of data, records. If the data is so huge, how to come to a conclusion? Understand what I'm saying? If the data is so huge, how to come to a conclusion? So for example, I ask you, today, how much money that you spent from morning, from morning when we got up from the bed to the night, how much money that you spent? It is easy, you can tell that one. But if I ask you, can you tell me how much money that you spent in the last 1 week? No, you cannot do it by thinking your brain, how to have it pen and paper. I ask you how much money that your family, every person in the family has been spending in the last 1 year. Is it possible to do by using a pen and paper? No, at least you can have an Excel sheet. If I ask you how much money that they spend in a village, all the members in the last 1 year. No, you cannot, even Excel is not enough to do that one. So, since the amount of data is getting increased, you cannot do it by normal traditional methods. Now, if the data is so huge, if you want to analyze the data, how we can analyze this data? If you want to analyze that much amount of data very fast, very accurately, within no time, what will we do? We have to use a software tool. A software tool can analyze the data very faster, very effectively, and with great accuracy. Now, whatever the software tool that you are using for analysis of the data, now we call it as a data analysis tool. There are around 20 to 25 different types of analysis tools are available. Data analysis tools are available in the market. SAS is one among them. And we have R, we have Python, TQ, Apache, Spark, JDQ, Castle. We have so many different types of analysis tools. So, for example, you use any one tool, but you are giving the data analysis. Once you done the data analysis, what we get now? We are going to get a data analysis report. Understand? We are going to get a data analysis report. Now, whatever analysis report that we have got, what I'm going to do, by using this analysis report, in the real time, we are going to fill an application called IND. IND stands for Investigational New Drug Application. And we are going to launch this application, IND application, to FDA. FDA stands for Food and Drug Administration of USA. I told you, if you want to market our drug in India, you should apply for DCGI. Why should I go for FDA? Remember one thing, as a pharma company, if you want to get good profits, you should market our drug internationally. If you want to market our drug in USA, you should get a permission from FDA. And one more important thing, FDA is very strict when it comes with the drug licensing. If you satisfy FDA regulations, now you can easily get a permission from any other country. So more or less all the countries are going to have a similar regulations. So that I'm going to approach FDA. Now if FDA gives the permission, so that it is easy for me to get the regulation acceptance for other countries. So that's why that I'm going to launch my application to FDA. But when Bharat Biotech they discovered, Covaxin, they didn't have much time. First they want to market the drug in India, so directly they went into the DCGI. Now they got approval from the DCGI, then they started manufacturing, and then they marketed in India. Then later they went into each country, and later they got the permission from FDA, so they started marketing ASA. So now what FDA will do? FDA will take 1 month time to review the application. If they strongly believe that by seeing the data review, if they strongly believe that yes, it is really promising in animals, they work really well, and now this FDA is going to give the permission to the pharma company. Yes, you can go and you can conduct the clinical trials in humans. That is how pharma companies are going to get approval from the FDA to conduct the clinical trials in humans. Up to this point, most of the pharma companies are going to have their own animal houses. They're going to have their own technical people. So they conduct the clinical trials in animals and they will get the approval from FDA. Once they got the FDA approval to conduct the clinical trials, okay, to conduct the clinical trials in humans, once they got the permission, now these pharma companies, we call them clients or sponsors, they're going to reach out to CRO companies. You know what is a CRO company? Contract or clinical research partner. These CRO companies, on behalf of the pharma companies, they'll conduct the clinical trials in humans, and those are called human clinical trials or clinical trials in humans. Countries like India is a big hub for CRO companies, particularly Hyderabad is a big hub for CRO companies. We have GVK, we have Hetero, we have so many other companies. They specialize in conducting the clinical trials in humans. Particularly in India, getting the patients with the specific disease symptoms is easy. We get the patient for cheaper price because we have so much of population. So we get the patients in huge number, how much enough patient that you require, you won't get easily. So that's why they conduct the clinical trials, particularly in India. Understand this one? Were you able to follow so far? Do you guys have any doubts?
It's clear. No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. Now, once the CRO companies started doing conducting clinical trials, now, whatever the clinical trials they are going to conduct in humans, we call them human clinical trials. And these humans, in humans, we classify the clinical trials into 4 phases. The first one is called as phase 1 study. The main focus of the phase 1 study is the safety of the drug. Main focus of the phase 1 is safety of the drug. Whether the drug is working or not, that is the secondary. Firstly, the drug must be 100% safe. At least if you have a better safety quality characteristics. So, we are going to prove the safety of the drug. But to prove the safety of the drug, what we are going to do here, we are going to take around 100 healthy humans. We are going to select 100 healthy volunteers. By the way, we should not call them as healthy volunteers or patients. Simply, we should call them as subjects. We should not discriminate them as a healthy or a patient. Simply, commonly, we should call them as subjects. So we are going to take 100 healthy subjects. We are going to prove that in this 100 healthy subjects, yes, my drug is safe. Again, we are going to prove that one. Here also same story. I am going to take 100 healthy subjects. And this number varies. And for example, sometimes we are going to take from 72, and it depends on the study, it depends on the drug, and it depends on the study disease. So for example, I have taken 100 healthy subjects. In this 100 healthy subjects, I am going to prove that one. Again, the same story. In this 100, before giving any drug, I am going to collect samples from these 100 humans. Once I collect the samples, again, what I am going to do, I am going to perform different types of diagnostic tests. And as I said, when you perform the test, what do you get now? We are going to get the test reports or test results. Whatever the reports I got, I am going to collect all the reports in the form of a table. Again, I told you, if you got information in the form of a table, yes, we call it as data. Now, in the same, again, 100 subjects. Now, after giving my extrovert drug, okay, again, what I am going to do, I am going to collect the samples. I am going to collect all the samples, like blood, serum, plasma, urine, sputum, biopsies. I am going to collect all the samples. Again, I am going to perform the same test that what I performed previously. Again, we are going to get the test reports. I am going to put all the information in the form of a table. Again, this is also called gathered data. Can you tell me what is the difference between this data and this data? This data is before the drug, and this data is after giving my expected drug. Now again, if you want to prove if a drug is safe, how we can prove that one? By comparing before I take drug with after drug. By comparing, we can compare conclusion. Again, I'm going to take an example. Just say for example, out of 100 subjects, and take a subject also for example X. In this subject, what I did before giving the drug, I measured blood pressure level, BP. Since it's a healthy volunteer, healthy person, what is the blood pressure level of a healthy person? What is the blood pressure level of a healthy person? 125 and this person also has got 125 Now, to the same X person, what I did, I have given my drug, X drug. After giving the X drug, again I measured the blood pressure level. And now this time, the blood pressure level is, for example, 160 by 110. Now, what is the chemical? What is the chemical side effect? Maybe.
It's not
safe. Because before the drug, it was very normal, 180, but after giving my drug, now the glucose level has, the blood pressure has been raised to 160 by 110. Maybe my drug is not so safe. But again, we cannot come to conclusion that much easily. Because the blood pressure level of any person not only depends on the drug what he has taken, it may be influenced by so many other factors, isn't it? What are the other factors make it involved? Again, the genes of the person. Again, it depends upon the person. It also depends upon the weight. It depends upon the body mass index. It depends upon the cholesterol level. It also depends upon the hypersensitivity. And it also depends on the, for example, thyroid problem. It also depends upon the diet what he has taken. It also depends on the exercise that what he has done. And it also depends on the rest. It also depends on the stress. So many other factors, isn't it? And so many factors getting changed. How to come to conclusion by seeing only one test report? No, we cannot come to conclusion. Again, if you want to come to conclusion, we have to consider all these factors. Again, if you want to start all these factors, we cannot take only the glucose level, or you cannot take only the blood pressure level. We should take all these reports. And again, we have to collect all this information from all the 100 subjects. If we are collecting all this information from all the 100 subjects, again, the amount of data that we are going to get is going to be huge in scale. We can't even imagine how many lines of data that we are going to get. So, we are going to have huge data. Understand this one, everybody?
Yes.
Now, we are going to have a huge data. So, at the end of the day, what I want to say, at the end of the phase 1, we are going to have huge amount of data. And by the way, during the phase 1 study only, we are going to measure maximum tolerable dosage. We call that the MTD, maximum tolerable dosage. So that means what is maximum dose that we can give without any side effects. How we are going to understand, how we are going to measure that one? We are going to follow a very simple technique. What I'm going to do, here I'm going to take 3 subjects, subject A, subject B, and subject C, 3 humans. all the three subjects, first I'm going to give 100 mg. Based on my investigator's opinion, I'm going to give everybody 100 mg drug. I'm going to observe if anybody has got any adverse event. Nobody has developed any symptoms, so then what I'm going to do, I'm going to increase that one to 200. Not I'm given to everybody, so all the three members have given 200. Now again, I'm going to observe the condition of all the three subjects, and by the way, all the three subjects are sick, they do not have any side effects, any adverse events, then I'm going to increase that to 300. Okay? Now, after increasing the 300, out of the three, one person has started having nausea problem. So he has started having nausea, so like vomitings, dizziness, fatigue like that one. Now I'm going to stop. I'm going back again one step back, again I'm going to give to everybody 200. Okay? Now again I have given 200, I observed for some time, but no problem for everybody, all the three numbers are fine. Now again I'm going to give the 300 now. After giving 300, again one of the subjects he started having vomitings. This B person has started having vomitings. And I'm going to stop this right here. The maximum dosage level that we can give without any side effect is, what is that one? That is the 200. So this is how we are going to decide the maximum tolerable dosage, so that we can give without any side effects. Understand this one, everybody?
Yes, sir.
Once we decided the maximum tolerable dosage, so maximum tolerable dosage 200. Now I'm going to test 100 mg in some of the subjects, 200 mg in some of the subjects. Because sometimes the same composition, if you have severe problem, we are going to have high dose. But if you do not have a mild problem, we can give only lesser dosage level, isn't it? So we have a dose of 500 and we have a dose of 650. Depends upon the condition, we are going to give. We have an naproxen 250, naproxen 500. If you have got a mild headache, we are going to give an naproxen. And if you have got a severe headache, we are going to give the 500. So once we decide the maximum tolerable dosage, then I'm going to decide, I'm going to divide my patients into 2 or 3 groups. I'm going to test different dosage levels. And during the phase 1 itself, we are going to decide what is the maximum dosage level without any side effects. Clear, everybody? This is how we are going to conduct the phase 1 study. Now once we have done with the phase 1 study, then we are going to conduct the phase 2 study. And by the way, if you are going as a fresher, all these topics are very, very important. Tell me what are the phases that we have in clinical trial. What is the main focus of the phase 1? Or what is the main focus of phase 2? They are going to ask all these questions. So, remember one thing, at the end of the course, don't ask me what are the important interview questions and all. Each and every question is very important when it comes to the interview. I can tell you one important thing. If you keep 3.5 years, 4 years experience also, you will not get one extra question that we didn't discuss in our class. So in the interview, we are going to get only the questions, the things that we are going to discuss in the classroom. That's for sure. So be careful, pay attention. Please, if you didn't understand anything, please let me know. I'll explain again and again. Understand this one? You will not get one extra question. That is guaranteed, even if you keep 3.5 to 4 years also. Okay, to that level we are going to discuss the concepts. Now, coming back to the phase 2. The main focus of the phase 2 is efficacy of the drug. What is the efficacy? Efficacy means how effectively the drug is working in the patient. How effectively the drug is reducing the disease. Now, think logically, if you want to prove the efficacy, and what kind of human second test this drug? It doesn't test it to
Patients.
very good. Who is the patient here? The diabetic. Because I'm saying that my drug is going to work on diabetes, so what I'm going to do, we can only prove that our drug is very effective only in diabetic patients. You know what is diabetes? Since in the starting I told you my drug is going to work on diabetic patients, so now the diabetes is called as a study disease. You know what is the study disease? The disease on which we are working. Our drug is going to work, that is called as a study disease. Now, during the phase 2, I'm going to select around 700 to 1000 diabetic patients. I'm going to choose diabetic patients. In these diabetic patients, I need to prove that yes, my drug is working really well. And here also, same. I'm going to select 1000 diabetic patients. Again, I'm saying you should not call them as patients, you should call them as only subjects. You should not discriminate them as a patient. Because in a clinical trial, the patient safety is very, very important. The whole clinical trial is going to revolve around the subject. If you compromise the patient safety, then they're going to stop the clinical trial. If the patient is safe, then you can conduct the clinical trial. If the patient is not so safe, you need to stop. You are clear? Or even everybody is going to so much of care about the patient. The whole clinical trial is going to revolve around only the patient safety. This is one of the interview questions. So, what is the main focus of the clinical trial? What is the main thing of the patient safety? So in this 1000 subjects, I need to prove that yes, my drug is working. Here also same story. Before giving any drug, what I'm going to do, from all the 1000 subjects, these subjects have got diabetes symptoms. From all the 1000 subjects, I'm going to collect the samples, I'm going to run the test, I'm going to get the reports. Yes, I'm going to get the data in the form of a table, and yes, we got the data. And again, from the same 1000 subjects, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give my drug. After giving the drug, again, from the same 1000 patients, what I'm going to do, I'm going to collect the data. I'm going to collect the data. Here also, we're going to get 2 different types of data before the drug and after the drug. Now we are going to prove that yes, my drug is working really well in these 1000 patients. Here's how we can prove that one. I want to say I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. So that means in the real time, if you want to prove that my drug is better than who, I should prove that I'm better than somebody else, better than someone else. Okay, so that means in the phase 2, most of the times we are going to do comparative study. So that means by comparing with someone else, I'm going to say my drug is better than the drug, my drug works faster than the some other drug, my drug is safer than the some other drug. So we need to always compare ourselves with somebody else. Then by comparison only, we can prove that yes, we are better than somebody else. So in the phase 2 also, we are going to do comparative study. What will be the comparative study? First of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all the 1000 subjects. From all the 1000 subjects, before giving any drug, I'm going to collect the data. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide these 1000 patients subjects into 2 groups. Just imagine, I'm dividing into 500 into one group, 500 into another group. One 500 group, I'm going to give my study drug. By the way, you know what is the study drug? Study drug means the drug which is under investigation. Under investigation, that means my study drug. That was your drug. And to the remaining 500 members, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a drug which is already available in the market, and that is called as a, what is called as a standard. Standard means it is already available in the market, which is competitive to me. Sometimes this standard drug is also called as a control drug, because I'm going to take it as a control as a reference. So, if I give my study drug to these 500 members, I'm going to collect the data after giving the study drug. After giving the standard drug, here also I'm going to collect the data. So that means in the phase 2, how many days of data we are going to get? We are going to get 3 days of data. Before giving any drug for all the 1,000 patients, after giving the study drug to my 500 subjects, after giving the standard drug to this 500 patients, yes, I'm going to collect the data. So in phase 2, we are going to have 3 different types of data. But sometimes, you will not have any competitive drug in the market. Because just for example, there is a novel drug. It's the first of its kind. So by the time no other drug is available in the market, then how are we going to compare? Now, since we do not have any comparative control standard drug, 500 half of the patients I'm going to give my study drug. The remaining half of the patients, what I'm going to do? I'm going to give a dummy drug which is called placebo. A placebo means a dummy drug which exactly looks like my drug, but it will not have any active ingredient. It exactly looks like my drug, but it will not have any active ingredient. Why should we have the placebo? Say for example, I want to prove that my drug is really working. So if I give 500 members of my study drug, if I didn't give any drug to remaining 500 members, whoever taken the drug, they are going to have some psychological advantages. They have taken this drug, I'm going to come out of the problem. So, and one more important thing, in the clinical trial, when the subject came to the hospital, I'm going to give some benefits. I'm going to give some money, maybe free food, free medication. Because of that, the patient, based on that, he wants to do some favor to me as a sponsor. So what he will do is going to give some false information. To avoid such unnecessary false information, to avoid unnecessary, psychological advantages and disadvantages, what I'm going to do, to the remaining 500 members, I'm going to give a dummy drug which exactly looks like my drug, but it will not have any active ingredient. Another day, when the Covaxin tested the drug, it's the first of its kind of vaccine. There was no such vaccine, comparative vaccine available in the market. So what they did, half of the subjects they have given their Covaxin, remaining 50%, half of the patients they have given saline water. But they don't know that it is saline water, they thought they have taken the drug. Understand? So to avoid the psychological factors and to avoid false information, we are going to the placebo trials as well. But anyhow, by giving the standard drug placebo, what we are going to do, we are going to collect the data. But the most important question is, to which family members we should give the study treatment, to which family members we should give the standard treatment. You might give study drug to body, you might give standard treatment. Can you give my study drug to all the male patients so that I can give standard drug to only female patients? So male patients are comparatively, they have a better resistance, so they can take out very fast. I will have some advantage. Or can I give my study drug to all the patients with age less than 35, or the standard drug to the patients with age greater than 35? So my drug I'm going to give to younger patients, so comparatively, they will take out very fast. Can I give my study drug to all the patients who has got a glucose level less than 250? That means very early onset. Can I give the standard drug to all the patients with a glucose level more than 350, so that they have a very acute problem, and so that I can have a better advantage because my patients are with they're going to recover very fast? No. You should not have a gender bias. You should not have an age bias. You should not have a disease bias. Without any bias. Okay? Without any bias, we should give the treatment. To avoid such bias, what we are going to do, we are going to select the patients randomly. If we are selecting a patient randomly towards a treatment, that is called as name randomization. What you call it as randomization? Very, very important question. What do you mean by randomization? To avoid unnecessary bias, if you select a patient or a subject towards a treatment randomly, purely based on the chance. Purely based on the chance, and that is called as randomization. Can I just it? By chance. No, nothing, no criteria, no favorism, no bias. Purely based on the chance, if you are selecting a subject towards a treatment, the whole process is called as randomization. Randomly we are going to select it. We never know which patient is going to get allocated for which treatment. And previously, we used to follow IDS methods, interactive voice recording system. Now we have a software for randomization also. By using those softwares, we are going to do the randomization. Based on the randomization, we are going to assign any treatment to any subject. By following the randomization factors, randomization quotient, we are going to do the randomization stuff. Understand this one? Now once you complete the randomization, do we need to reveal to the subject whether I'm giving to this 500 members, I'm giving study treatment to you, and I'm giving study treatment to you? Do we need to disclose that information to them? No. If you disclose, if you tell that yes, I'm giving the study treatment to you, or I'm giving the study treatment to you, if you disclose that information, and that is called as an open label. So that means everything is open. But in most of the clinical trials, we are going to keep it as a secret. If we are keeping it as a secret, that concept we call as blinding. We are going to hide or mask the subject from knowing the information. That process is called as blinding. Because if they know what treatment they are getting, they get some psychological advantage. If I know that if I'm taking the study treatment, I will have some psychological advantage because it's already proven, it is in the market. I will have an advantage. I can say, yes, I'm going to come out of the problem. But if I'm taking the study medication, we don't know that. It's not proven yet. I don't know what is going to happen. I will have some psychological disadvantage. To avoid such unnecessary things, we are going to blind, we are going to mask, and we are going to hide it, and that process is called as the blinding. And this is there is only 3 different types of blindings. The first one is called single blind. You know what is a single blind? In a single blind, only the subject is going to get masked. The investigator, who is the investigator? The person who supervises the clinical trial is called investigator. The investigator will know what drug he is administering. Here, subject and 2 roles we have. Subject is the person who involved in the clinical trial, and investigator is the doctor generally who supervises the clinical trial. Next we have a double blinding. In double blinding concept, both the subject and investigator, both of them going to get hidden masked. Both the subject and investigator. By the way, who is the investigator? The person who supervises clinical trial, generally a doctor. Both of them is going to get hidden masked. And then, most of the clinical trials are going to be double blinded, okay? And sometimes we are going to take it because in double blind, as investigator, if I know what drug it is, if I have sympathy towards any patient, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give the standard drug because it's already proven. It is there in the market, so there is some guarantee. Here, the subject, the investigator, and the person who handles the data, generally the sponsor, or any person who handles the data is going to get masked. Because as a sponsor, if I know what drug it is, I may manipulate the data. If the data has been manipulated, if the FDA gives permission based on the manipulated data, it is going to worse. So to avoid such kind of things, we are going to do sometimes to do that. By following this randomization concept, by following this blinding concept, all these are called study design. By following all these study design methods, we are going to conduct the clinical trial. Ultimately, at the end of the phase 2, what we are getting? We are getting the data. called phase 3 studies. Remember what was the main focus of the phase 1?
Safety.
Safety. What was the main focus of the phase 2? Efficacy. So tolerable dose of the phase 1 is correct. Tolerable dose you mentioned. So it is also phase 1 or phase 1. Only the phase 1 is the maximum tolerable doses. Without any side effects. Okay. Now the main focus of the phase 1 is the safety. The main focus of the phase 2 is efficacy. But the main focus of the phase 3 is both safety and efficacy. If we have already proven the safety in the phase 1, we already proven efficacy in the phase 2. Again, why we need to conduct the phase 3 both safety and efficacy? In the phase 1, I took only 100 subjects. In the phase 2, I took only 1,000 patients maximum. But in the phase 3, we are going to perform the same thing on huge population, on huge sample size, sometimes so 10,000 to 30,000, even more than one, even 50,000 also. We see that Covaxin, when they conduct the phase 3, they did 50,000 patients. Then the respiratory studies are going to have a huge number. And some other studies are, if it is different therapeutic area, we are going to have lesser number. If it is a genetic disease, getting those, symptoms of patients in those numbers is very highly difficult. If it is a genetic disorder, hereditary problem, you will not get those many patients. It is going to be 3 or 4 only, not more than that. So the number varies from one disease to another. This is one study to another study. It has to grow. But the sample size is going to be huge when you compare with phase 1 and phase 2. Because if you prove the same phenomenon in phase 3 also, you will get more and more credibility, better acceptance by the drug. And one more important thing, most of the phase 3 studies are multi-center. Since the conducting this study in multi-center, the number is going to be huge. Because in most of the countries, if you want to market your drug in the country, they will ask you, you should continue, you have to test your drug on my population. Because you know that one, these drug reactions varies from phenotype to phenotype, genotype to genotype, race to race. Isn't it? So to understand that one should study that one, we are going to conduct a multi-center studies, multinational studies, so the number is going to be huge. But in the phase 3 also, ultimately what is going to happen? Before the drug we collect the data, after the drug we collect the data, so ultimately what is going to do? We are going to get the data. So in phase 1 we got the data, in phase 2 we got the data, and again in phase 2 also we got the data. So everywhere we have data, and the data. Once you collected all the data, then what we are going to do? Again, since the data is so huge, we have to do the data analysis. How we can do the data analysis? If you want to do the analysis again, we have to use some software tool. By using the tool, I am going to do the data analysis. Once we're done with the data analysis, what we are going to get now? We are going to get an analysis report. Once you got this analysis report, with this report, what we are going to do now? We are going to fill an application called NDA or BLA. New drug application or biological licensing application. If a drug molecule contains some microbial or some biological residues, then we have to fill BLA application. But if a drug is entirely chemical, synthetic, now we have to fill NDA application. And again, we are going to launch this NDA or BLA application to FDA. Now FDA is going to take us 6 months to 2.5 years time to review the application. Now we strongly believe that if a drug really worked well in this during this clinical trial, then they will give the permission to manufacture a drug and to market a drug. Understand this one? Now, once the drug went into the market, now the FDA will ask you, they will ask you one thing. Yes, I want to know how a drug is working in long term. So for example, if you use an antibiotic for 1 week, there will be no side effects. But if you use the same antibiotic for 15 days, what will happen? Anybody? Favorite officer. An antibiotic is also it is also going to kill your natural bacteria. Isn't it? It is also going to kill gut bacteria, isn't it? If the gut bacteria has been killed, now if you use for 10 days, you're going to get the diarrhea. Because nothing is going to get digested, everything is going to come out. And if you use the same antibiotic for a long time, that antibiotic resistance is going to happen. In the same way, if you use a painkiller for 3-4 days, it's okay. But if you use it for long duration, again, your intestine is going to get disturbed, you're going to get ulcers. Isn't it? So every drug is going to have some kind of side effects now. But if you use a drug for a short period, it may not show any side effects, but if you use the same drug for the longer duration, it might cause some problems. Now, FDA wants to know that one. If anybody uses this drug for longer duration, what is going to happen? Now, they will ask you, once the drug went into the market, please collect the data from the hospitals, doctors and patients, and please submit that data as well. Okay? And then whatever the data that we are submitting now, we are going to collect the data from hospital doctors and patients, and we are going to do the data analysis. Again, I'm going to submit this analysis report to FDA, and this is called as, what is this called? This is called as phase 4 studies. Then, so the drug went into the market. After the drug went into the market, I'm collecting this information, and this is called as, what is called as we call it as post-marketing surveillance. Post-marketing surveillance. We call it as post-marketing surveillance. Understand this one? You name any drug that is available right now in the market, it has to go through all this pipeline. No exception. You remember, in the starting I told you, when you discover a new drug, we apply for intellectual property right. How many years you get intellectual property right? 20 years. 20 years. Remember I told you in the starting, you will get this property for 20 years. Yeah, the 20 years are over. Now, you are not in a war of this molecule. Anybody can manufacture this one. That's why what the pharma companies will do, by the end of the 20 years, they are going to develop somehow, they are going to add some new functional group, delete something and do something. They are going to develop that one again, they'll apply for IP rate, they are going to extend the IP rate. Otherwise, people like me, what they will do, now after 20 years, I'll get the drug into my house later, whatever I'm going to powder it, make it powder, and then I'm going to separate the components, I'm going to measure the components, what is the complete component is, what is the quantity, now I'm going to mix all the components in bulk sizes, and then I'm going to again manufacture the tablets and capsules, injection, whatever it might be, and that is called a generic. You did so much of research, and it's going to cost you, each tablet is going to cost you 5 rupees because you did so much of R&D, and then you did the clinical trials, and you got the whole process, and then because of all those reasons, each tablet is going to cost you 5 rupees value, because you did so much of research, you spent so much of money on it, you wasted so much of money, and it's going to cost you 5 rupees. Now, I did the reverse process. Just as simply I mixed all the components, and then I manufactured a new drug now. It is for the same components, and then for that reason, it is going to cost me around 80-50 paise. Because I did any research. Simply, what I did, I just mixed it all together in larger proportion. So, if it is costing 50 paise, then what am I going to sell for 2 rupees? And I'm going to get a 3 times profit. But since 5 rupees is cost of your tablet, if you want to get the profit, at least you should sell it for 6 rupees. And obviously, the customer is going to come to whom? They are going to come to me only, because I'm getting the same drug for 2 rupees only. So that means if you want to get a good profit, you have to get everything in the 2 years time, in the 10, 20 years time. Out of 20 years, to get the drug into the market, to conduct the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, you should do the manufacturing process and then you should get the drug into the market. It is going to take you around 12 years time to get the drug into the market. From the initial starting consumption, consumption of like, discovering the drug to get into the market is going to take 12 years time. Out of 20 years, you already lost 12 years. You have to do only 8 years with you, and in the 8 years, you have to get so much of profits, otherwise you are going to be losses. You know what? If you discover 10,000 molecules in a lab, how many molecules are going to come to the market? Only 5 drug molecules, 10 drug molecules will come into the market. Can you see the success ratio? 10,000 is to 1. The success rate is very, very less. That's why if you get approval as a pharma company, if you get approval from any drug molecule from FDA, the next day your share market is going to rise like anything, like a rocket. If you get limited approval, if they deny the approval of any drug molecule of yours, the next day your share market is going to be, crazy. But it is going to be like anything. If you could able to get approval for any drug from FDA, and you are going to be in super profits next 10 to 15 years. And if you didn't get an approval, all your share market is going to get down, there are going to be losses. So, the business is very risky, so much of money involved, so much of time involved in process. And one more important thing is, everybody is going to be very, very strict in each and every point that they are going to be taking a lot of care. So, you should be very accurate, the data should be very accurate, and you should not make any mistakes, and they are going to be very, very vigilant, and they are going to take a lot of care. After that, airways, all these aeroplanes and all, aeroplanes, the data and the field is very, very, you should be very accurate. If you are not accurate, it is going to be very disastrous. They should be very pinpointed. After that, airways, the most important, very accurate, very minute details, so micro observation we are having on clinical trials, clinical research, drug discovery office. So you have to take a lot of care, not only FDA, all these countries, regulatory bodies and ICH is going to take so much of care. They're going to observe you, they're going to visit you, every step. So much of money involved, so much of time involved, and a high competitive field. Each and every step is going to be very, very crucial. Understand this, everybody?
Yes.
Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so that's why all companies, pharma companies are going to take a lot of care when it comes to the clinical trial, data analysis, data collection, data analysis, and reporting. They're going to take a lot of care. Okay. Now, in today's class, we have seen up to the phase 3, and I said we collect the data and we submit this data to FDA. Now, my question is, if you want to market a drug, from where you should get the permission? You should get the permission from FDA. Yes, FDA. You want to get the permission from what application should be?
NDA.
New drug application. All theory. If you want to get application, what you should have? Biological licensing application. In drug market law, either biological messages on biological components on the body. You should be PMD. Because sometimes we create vaccines and other things from microbial organisms, right? If you do that one, we should be a PMD. And then, if you want to get analysis report, what we should do?
Data analysis.
Now, FDA will ask you to do the data analysis. What is the analysis tool that you use? What is the tool that you use? FDA will ask you the question. According to FDA guidelines, you have to use only SAS. That is why you guys have learned SAS. Because according to FDA guidelines, SAS is 100% mandatory. You should not use any tool other than the SAS. If you use any tool other than the SAS, they will not accept your analysis report. If they didn't accept your application, you will not get a permission from FDA. If you didn't get the permission from FDA, what you cannot launch your drug into the market. And when we have a COVID pandemic, remember, I think Patanjali has come with a new drug. Without being like I forgot that the medication name. Arsenic. What is that? Name, I don't know what drug it is. They get the drug in the market without getting DCGI permission. Immediately DCGI asked them, submit the data. They didn't have the data, they didn't analyze the data. Within 2 days time, they retract the drug from the market because without any clinical trial, they cannot accept the drug, they cannot give any guarantee. So, if you didn't get the permission from a proper authority regulatory body, you cannot market the drug. So all those things are going to get wasted. So, according to the guidelines or DCGI, any regulatory guidelines, what are the tools you should use?
SAS.
SAS is the reason why you guys have learned SAS.
It is most
I will tell you how to do analysis, what are the differences that we have in the submission of the data to FDA. We'll discuss about those things and we'll see all the concepts. And by the way, we are running at almost 8:40. We need to take another class, right? I thought of today starting clock means start the analysis. Can we start from tomorrow? I'm going to start this class by 8:15 tomorrow, so we can have a class tomorrow. I'm going to start the analysis processes from tomorrow. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay then.
Sir, this is a serious introduction, sir.
Yes, this is serious introduction.
In the meanwhile, you continue the topics, you also continue in this section, sir.
Yeah, and we are going to finish 8 to 9 batch in couple of maybe 10 days time after that. We are going to be free 8 to 9 also, so I'll take longer sessions so that I can cover SQL in a series that I just remember.
AP and regular process will finish within 10 days.
10 days.
Okay, thanks, sir. Thanks, sir.
Okay, then. See you in tomorrow's class.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.